Well, it's not only an emotional connection, I think it goes beyond that. I think when we began building the company, we created a different business proposition. Not better than anyone else, but it really was different, and that was from the very beginning, recognizing that success would be best if it was shared, and in a sense building a company that would try and achieve the fragile balance between profitability and a social conscience.
Sharks and Titans, the stories they never wanted you to see. Three men sat in a small storefront in Seattle in 1971. They sold whole coffee beans, no chairs, no espresso, no milk, just raw roasted coffee for purists who wanted to brew it at home. 11 years later, a young marketing director named Howard Schultz walked into that same store, and he pitched them a radical vision that would eventually make them completely irrelevant. He wanted to serve prepared coffee. He wanted to build a national chain of Italian espresso bars. They listened, and then they ruthlessly crushed his vision. This is the story of how a humiliated employee built a rival company from scratch, stole their best people, and returned with enough capital to buy the entire company out from under them. In 1982, Schultz took a trip to Milan. He stood in the bustling coffee bars. He watched the baristas. He saw the opera, the noise, the deep human connection. He called it the third place, a space between work and home where people found comfort. He rushed back to Seattle to sell this beautiful vision to the founders. Jerry Baldwin and the original board were coffee purists. They viewed serving prepared coffee as a cheap restaurant trick that would ruin their premium beans. But Schultz was relentless. They finally allowed him to open one tiny espresso kiosk in a corner of a new downtown Seattle store in 1984, just to shut him up. The experiment worked terrifyingly well. Lines formed around the block, but the founders still said absolutely no. Schultz realized he was not a partner. He was just an employee they could easily ignore. The humiliation burned deep. He quit in 1985, and the systematic revenge began. He did not go find another job. He decided to build a weapon. He was brutally rejected by 242 out of 242 initial investors. They thought he was completely insane to compete against the established local brand. But his absolute refusal to accept humiliation kept him alive. He finally found a small group of local investors who believed in his madness. He raised enough capital to start a competing coffee shop called Il Giornale, right in Starbucks' backyard. He finally opened the heavy glass doors of Il Giornale in 1986. The aesthetic was radically different. The energy was brutally aggressive. He did not just want to sell coffee. He wanted to steal the entire market share of the company that had humiliated him. He positioned his stores directly in the path of Starbucks' core demographic. He offered a superior experience. He offered the romance of Milan that the founders had arrogantly dismissed as a cheap trick. Il Giornale was certainly not just another coffee shop. It was a sniper rifle aimed directly at the heart of Starbucks, and the founders watched in horror as their best customers started walking past their doors. He aggressively poached their best managers. He copied their superior bean quality, but he added the Italian experience they had so arrogantly dismissed. He was building a direct, lethal threat to the company that had rejected him. Then, in 1987, the ultimate irony struck. The founders decided to sell Starbucks to focus on Peet's Coffee. They had only 17 stores, and the only person with the vision and the capital to buy them was the very man they had kicked out 2 years earlier. Imagine the dynamic in that boardroom. The founders who had treated him like a naive kid were now forced to hand over the keys to the entire kingdom to that exact same kid. It was a total, devastating surrender of their legacy. Howard Schultz raised $3.8 million. He bought Starbucks back. He stripped the Il Giornale name. The founders took their money and walked away into permanent obscurity. Schultz took their little local roaster and ignited a global monolith. He took the company public in 1992. He turned a niche Seattle bean shop into a $100 billion global empire. He did not just beat them. He completely erased their legacy and wrote his own name over it. But this is where the story takes a darker turn. To build an empire of over 30,000 stores, Schultz had to standardize the very soul of the Italian coffee bar he originally fell in love with. The intimacy was replaced by ruthless efficiency. The manual espresso machines were replaced by automated push-button machines to speed up service. The local barista was replaced by a corporate script. By 2007, the stock was soaring, but the soul of the company was dying. The stores lost their unique aroma. They began smelling like burned cheese from the automated breakfast sandwiches. The romance of the barista was replaced by the speed of a fast food drive-thru. And in 2008, the stock collapsed. The empire was cracking under its own weight. Schultz had to return as chief executive to fix the corporate machine he had built. He had to close thousands of stores in the United States simultaneously to retrain the baristas. He had to manually dismantle the efficiency model he spent 20 years creating, just to bring back a shadow of the original romance. The founders wanted to keep coffee small and pure. Schultz wanted to make it massive and dominant. He won the war of scale, but he lost the war of intimacy. And then he spent his later years desperately trying to buy back the soul he traded away for $100 billion. The real tragedy is whether the empire he built to prove a point still resembles the dream he originally pitched in that small Seattle room. He bought the company that rejected him, but in the end, he became the very thing the Purists feared he would become. Sharks and Titans exposes the revenge, the power plays, and the empires built on spite. Hit subscribe.